It's very easy to get carried away with this kind of technology, with immersive technologies and AR and VR. I think the most important thing about our industry is you have to evolve as you go. And if you don't evolve, you very quickly become irrelevant.
Welcome to a new episode of XR AI Spotlight, the show that gives the stage to the founders and makers pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. My name is Gabriele Romagnoli, I'm your host, and I'm here today with Connell Gauld. Connell is the CTO and co-founder of Zapworks. Zapworks was founded initially in 2011 and is one of the world's leading XR platforms and creative studio. Since then, the team kept building and innovating, launching several products on the market, like an affordable headset unlocking untapped growth opportunities.
Zapworks as a product, it's a low-cost headset for mixed reality type experiences. So sometimes we think about it as like an affordable Magic Leap type headset. And if we try and bring down the barrier to entry, what use cases does that open up for us? One of the big ones is
an editor for both designers and developers to build AR experiences directly on the web.
And with Mattercraft, what we wanted to do, and we felt there was a real gap in the market for, was creative tooling that was of the standard of those big game platforms you might have like Unity or Unreal, but we wanted it built for the web from the ground up.
A technology deployed on millions of physical products leveraging their knowledge in computer vision.
But at the top of the controller, we have this dome with some dots and dashes on it. Those that are blind and partially sighted in the community find it very difficult to get information about the products that they have either in the store or in their cupboard. And so what we did was we took this dot dot dash pattern that we'd been developing for the headset and we placed it around the corner of a QR code. So Zapvision is already on over 2 billion products around the world now. Our launch partner for Zapvision was Unilever, and so they've deployed what we call accessible QR codes on products across a range of different categories, from like detergents to home care to just a huge set and growing.
In this conversation, we will dive into each one of them, go through this transformational journey and understand how they have developed and fine-tuned different business models for the varied product lines.
Each of the products are kind of supported and serviced in different ways by Zapper. Our creative tooling is a software as a service platform. The headset is just sold in Amazon and in GameStop and a few places like that. And then Zapvision is very much a assisted product from Zapper's perspectives.
But before we get into it, I wanted to thank our sponsor Meshy, who made this episode possible. Meshy is a real powerhouse for generating 3D assets with AI. You can start with a simple text or image prompt and get high-quality, stylized 3D models in just a minute. There are two features that completely blew my mind. One is the ability to create stylized texture for any mesh, with or without UV. And the other is the ability to edit portions of AI-generated textures like in Midjourney in Painting. The team has been pushing continuous updates, improving significantly the geometry and texture quality, and I strongly encourage you to visit meshy.ai and check out the generous free plan. After that, make sure to use the code XRAI20 to get a 20% discount on your subscription. And now it's time to welcome Connell under the spotlight. Connell, it is a real pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me. The pleasure is mine.
So, Connell, Zapper has been in XR in the market for 13 years. What specific lesson have you learned in a space when a lot of companies have died?
Absolutely. I think the most important thing about our industry is you have to evolve as you go. You know, there's lots of interesting new technology happening very quickly in the space. And if you don't evolve, you very quickly become irrelevant. And so one of the key learnings for us has been always be looking at and anticipating what's the next thing in our industry that's going to effectively deliver value for end users of this type of technology. One of the things that's kind of crazy for us to think about is we started Zapper in 2011. And the iPhone was only really a few years old at that stage. And how the devices we've been working with have evolved in that time has been huge. And so necessarily, we as a company have had to evolve. And I think it's important to do that.
So can you maybe share some example of how your strategy or your product line evolved in time to what changes you have reacted?
Absolutely. Well, there's a couple of things that are particularly important. One is at Zapper around 2017, 2018, we made a quite conscious and dedicated pivot towards the web as the ultimate application delivery platform for this type of content. Up until that point, at Zapper, we had a native platform. So tooling and content that would be delivered through native apps. The user would go to the App Store and install the Zapper app on their phone. And we had tooling that allowed people to build content and publish them instantly through that platform. But the web in that same time started to become more powerful, and technologies like WebAssembly and the APIs that allow web applications to access the camera became available, and the devices themselves were able to compute more in a web environment and better resources. And that enabled, I suppose, what at the time was the first generation of AR delivered through the browser. Simultaneously, there was the WebXR specification, which was being worked on by the web browsers. We make tooling for WebXR, but we also have our own APIs where we think it's beneficial to do something slightly different to that specification. But the benefit of the web, of course, being you can build that content, you can deploy it very quickly, you can leverage the infrastructure around web and the ecosystem around web, and it's just I think a much more low friction pipeline from both developers and also consumers accessing that content.
Because there is this whole level of hardware infrastructure that have dramatically improved, right? So nonetheless, there are still many challenges that AR has been facing, that is still facing. So when we look at consumers and businesses, what are the things that are still stopping maybe AR from getting more adopted?
I think one of the big things is it's a complicated industry. There's a lot of terminology. There's a lot of potential and opportunities and different platforms. It's confusing for an outsider looking into our industry to try and pick out where there's value for them in this type of technology. And so at one end of the spectrum, you'll have big brands and businesses that might leverage AR for marketing campaigns. You might have manufacturing companies that leverage AR for learning and development and training, in a factory setting. And you have all the way at the other end of the spectrum, you have consumers using Snapchat face filters, for example. And all of these things are augmented reality, right? And so if you're let's say somebody in a business who has come across AR as a concept, how can the industry demonstrate to that person how AR can help them achieve what they're trying to achieve?
But then what's your approach of doing that? So let's take, for example, a business in this case, right? So you approach them, and how do you help them understand the full spectrum and maybe find something that fits for their need or address a specific problem they have?
That's a great question. And at Zapper, we have multiple ways of doing this from a strategic level, but then also to a product level. So at the strategic level, we have, for example, relationships, enterprise level relationships, if you like, with big businesses where we work with them closely, often centrally within their business in a sort of immersive or emerging technologies group to help them understand how these types of immersive technologies can be applied to their business. The benefit is at Zapper we have actually quite a broad range of products, and that helps us map our product set to their requirements. And it works in these big organizations because there's often a nexus, like a person in that organization or a small group in that organization whose mandate is emerging technologies. And that's the adapter, if you like, between us and the AR industry and what those businesses need. At the product level, we do something slightly different, which is we have a set of creative tools, for example, a set of materials to help people understand what those tools are capable of, and then get it out into people's hands. And at that stage, it's just about the usual product sales and marketing strategies around making sure those products are advertised in the right places, making sure we can target as best we can the tools to the customers we know are going to have the need for them. So it's a broad spectrum.
So I think you made a good point, right? And it's maybe a broad question with a broad answer. So let's look, for example, at the Zapbox, right? That is this affordable augmented reality headset, right? That has basically these frames on which we can put your phone, but not just that. It also has controllers that are tracked that you can use, for example, with Tilt Brush, for example, right? So how does that communicating the value? So first of all, maybe who is the main audience for that at the moment, based on your experience, and how are you trying to articulate the value of that product, or let's say the benefit or the features? Can you maybe give us some examples?
Absolutely. And again, Zapbox is an interesting product from the perspective of kind of framing and positioning, because it has potentially quite a broad set of use cases. So if we think about what defines Zapbox as a product, it is, as you described, it's a low-cost headset for mixed reality type experiences. So sometimes we think about it as like an affordable Magic Leap type headset, an affordable Quest 3 type headset, these types of things. And so one way you can look at it is you can say, okay, what are the types of experiences that those headsets are used for? And if we try and bring down the barrier to entry, particularly the affordability barrier to entry for that, what use cases does that open up for us? One of the big ones is education. So it's environments where you want to put a headset into what is probably quite an uncontrolled environment, perhaps a school, or even learning and development for adults, where those might be in workplaces and what have you. You don't want a big outlay on a device that might be expensive to put in place and might be fragile. So there's cases like that where Zapbox kind of reduces the barrier to entry and gives you scale. Another example is events, where you're going to be carting around headsets on your kind of trade show route around the world, and they're going to be bashed around. They're going to be in the hands of the grubby masses, if you like, in these events, and you don't want to have to have spent hundreds and hundreds of pounds, or like $3,000 in the case of an Apple Vision Pro, for a device that's going to be chucked around at an event.
And it's also very hard to share and to adapt. I mean, but that's a different story. So you mentioned education, and then maybe how is education using a device like this?
Again, there's a couple of ways, and one of the benefits of Zapbox, I would say probably one of the benefits of XR in general, is that there is a huge range of possibility in terms of what you can do with a device like that. And by putting a device like that in people's hands, they will come to you with use cases and applications that you haven't anticipated, and that end up being really nice use cases. I think some of the simpler experiences in education actually turn out to be the best. And so things like instead of carting or having in every classroom in your school life-size human replica and teaching anatomy, you can have a simple 3D model-based headset experience where you can, look through the different layers of the human body. So the kind of skin and musculature and skeletal layer in the body, and it's a relatively simple content experience. But what it actually is a very effective teaching experience. And so those are the cases that often simple actually turns out to be very compelling.
And in that case, is that something that comes out of the box? Do you have like a suite of apps and experiences that people can try straight away? Can people create their own? How's that work? The deployment and creation of content.
Yeah, there's a number of ways again. So with Zapbox, we do have a set of first-party content that we serve through the app stores. So in Zapbox, you put in your mobile phone, so you go to the app store to get a subset of the content. And so we've got some games. There's OpenBrush, the port of the open source Tilt Brush project, and various other experiences like that. And so developers can target or can build native apps for Zapbox using Unity. We provide a plugin that's a swap out plugin for the usual XR Foundation implementation that you would use for Quest or something like that. But then we also have a WebXR browser. And so people can build content for that using any normal WebXR tooling. And they don't have to worry about App Store submissions or anything like that. And indeed, at Zapper, we have tooling specifically targeting WebXR. We have a product called Mattercraft and a product called Designer. And they're both in-depth content development environments for AR, including WebXR.
So in this tooling to build for this medium, what is that someone can do? So as I understood, Mattercraft is a bit more developers driven. Designer is a more like creative, no code driven. So what kind of interactions can you add? What kind of 3D models can you put in? Particles, or I don't know. What can you do in it?
Yeah. Well, Mattercraft, we can start with. When we were at Zapper, as we've discussed, we've been at it for a long time in the industry. And we have, in that time, needed creative tooling ourselves for the type of work that we do. And with Mattercraft, what we wanted to do, and we felt there was a real gap in the market for, was creative tooling that was of the standard of those big game platforms you might have, like Unity or Unreal. But we wanted it built for the web from the ground up. So we didn't want it to be some port to the web of a big engine like Unity. We've experimented with that in the past, and it's just too big. It's not designed for the web. It's not ideal. So we said, let's build a content development platform for the web from the ground up, inspired by the type of developer experiences you can get with something like Unity. And so it's engine. You script in it if you wish to. It's with TypeScript or JavaScript. It's embraces the web ecosystem, so it uses things like the npm package manager or the package repository. It uses 3JS and other ecosystem APIs like that, so developers that come to it with existing web experience get straight in. And then the world's your limit when it comes to what you can achieve with that. We provide templates for world-tracked AR, face-tracked AR, image-tracked AR. We have a partnership with Immersal for VPS, so world-located and geographic-located experiences. Any form of 3D experience for the web. And that can be something simple all the way through to a full gameplay type experience, because you have the power of scripting at your fingertips. There's physics, there's full timelines and animation system built in. It's basically what you need for a proper development environment. On the other side, we have Designer, which is a more drag and drop tool for building AR, in particular focused on world tracking, face tracking, and image tracking. And it's our internal differentiator between the two is that Designer will never have scripting. So Designer is always going to be a drag and drop experience for those who prefer a fully visual development environment. You can still do some animations, multi-scene, stateful experiences. And so you can build actually, particularly in those learning and development use cases and those education cases, you can still build really impactful content with Designer if you want to the gameplay types experiences.
So if I understand, you could still, let's say you have a mannequin of a human, you could still click on the eye and have a pop-up saying, okay, this is the eye, is made of this many cells and whatever, stuff like this. So there is still this simple interactions that can be triggered.
Exactly, absolutely. The differentiator to Mattercraft would be if you wanted like gameplay type experience where you've got business logic, if you like, that you have to apply to the experience. And in that regard, the types of things you can achieve with Unity, you can also achieve with Mattercraft.
So what are maybe some example of stuff that people have built? Is that something that you can share in terms of maybe business, maybe more like entertainment? What have people built using Mattercraft or Zapworks Designer, maybe specifically for the Zapbox?
Yeah, well, so Mattercraft, again, it has quite a broad range of use cases, all the way from interactive gameplay type experiences that don't involve AR. It's just a great 3D game engine, if you like, for the web. And so we've had people build Fruit Ninja type experiences. Often they will be, achieving a specific business aim. So for example, we had one customer who built a Fruit Ninja type gameplay experience to teach about a product and how to use that product. We have customers using WebXR in Mattercraft through both Quest and Zapbox for demonstrating how to set up a store. So the idea is it's for store managers who are being given from, if you like, their franchise owner floor plans and kind of suggested setups for how products should be arranged in a store. And they built a VR experience with Mattercraft to show a user what that experience feels like and how things should be laid out in a store. Benefit, of course, being, would they do that if that involved an App Store submission process? No. That's like a huge outlay and a huge investment in time and then management to submit something to the App Store. But if they're able to build that very quickly in Mattercraft, deploy those devices to those stores and those store managers, and they have a link to click or a QR code to scan to get into that experience, then it's way low friction for that customer or for that end user, I should say. And it's also way low friction for them to build and deploy that experience. So really taking advantage of the web distribution.
Given you indeed this part of the web distribution, right? Just for me to understand, if I build something with Mattercraft or with Zapworks designers, in theory I should be able also to see it and experience it on a Quest, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
So then I will have the option to enter VR or enter specific mode, and then I would see it from the browser in a Quest, for example, going into that experience that was built on Mattercraft or Zapworks Designer.
Exactly. So Mattercraft has support for the WebXR specification, which is implemented by the Quest browser, implemented by other headset browsers as well, Vision Pro, Magic Leap, Pico, and of course our own Zapbox one. What we did with the WebXR specification is, WebXR specification itself is quite bare bones, if you like, or at least it's very developer-y. It's an API. Whereas developers of XR experiences in something like Unity are used to a much more visual development environment and much more developer-oriented interface for making that content. Mm-hmm. And so what we did was, with Mattercraft, we built a set of tools and functionality in Mattercraft that makes working with WebXR feel like working with XR Foundation in Unity would. So that users don't have to worry about how all of the input profiles work for the different controllers and all of these sorts of things. Mattercraft provides an abstracted input mechanism. So a developer can say, I want to know if someone's clicked on a thing. And Mattercraft will say, well, if it's hand tracking, then it's if they can point and pinch. If it's a controller, then it's a point and pull the trigger. If it's on screen, it's a tap with the finger. All of these things in Mattercraft are mapped into the input abstraction. So it's these things that round off the edges of something like WebXR and really make it a powerful tool for building this type of content.
I just wanted to have a quick break to remind you that if you're enjoying this conversation, you should definitely check out the XR AI Spotlight newsletter. By subscribing, you will get weekly interviews like this one directly in your inbox, an app or product I personally have tested and recommend, and access to a list of over 400 mixed reality apps for Quest that you can easily search and filter. Just check the first link in the show description. And now, let's get back to the show. So we have discussed about a few. There are still more of the things you guys are busy with, because you have also released some time ago what's called Zapvision, right? There is this AR app to support the visually impaired. What is it? How does it work? And also, how do you involve the people that are supposed to put this code on the products in all this, right? So just give us the whole picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at Zapper, one of the core elements of what we've been working on forever at Zapper is computer vision technology. We've spoken a lot about our tooling at Zapper, our creative tooling, but really fundamentally Zapper is a computer vision company. And one of the elements of computer vision in particular that we have been working on is being able to detect things even when they're tiny in the camera view. So an example with our headset is the controllers. So I've got one of the controllers here, but I'll describe it for those listening. It's a controller like a Quest controller would be, but at the top of the controller, we have this dome with some dots and dashes on it, high contrast dots and dashes. And we use those dots and dashes to track this controller in 6 degrees of freedom when the user is holding it in their hand. And if you imagine, if you hold a controller at arm's distance and you open your phone camera and you switch that camera to the wide angle lens, because we want to get the biggest field of view, the pixels in that camera image that correspond to the dots and dashes of something held at arm's length are really small. So we want to be able to very readily find that pattern in the camera view. We want to do it at 4K resolution, so we can find it as small as we can, and we want to do it at 60 frames per second because the user is expecting this experience to be smooth for them. And so we developed this technology for tracking the controllers in our headset. But then we and one of our partners discovered this issue, which is that those that are blind and partially sighted in the community find it very difficult to get information about the products that they have either in the store or in their cupboard, because they can't see what the rest of us can, which is what's written on the product packaging. And so what we did was we took this dot dot dash pattern that we'd been developing for the headset and we placed it around the corner of a QR code. And then that QR code can go on product packaging. And what it allows us to do is, from within our app, we can detect that QR code at way further away and way smaller than a normal QR code scanner can detect it. So whereas a normal QR code scanner can detect a 15 millimeter code, so really small code, can detect it from about 15 centimeters away, so about 10 times the distance. We can detect it from over a meter away. And in fact, we can decode the whole QR code and get the full information about the QR code from over 65 centimeters away. So it's like a 5 times difference in the performance of how we can detect this QR code and how far away and how small it can be in order for that to happen. So the benefit is those who are blind or partially sighted, they can hold the phone over the product. They don't need to know where on the product that QR code is. They don't need to kind of range find it, if you like, into the middle of the camera view. Our application can detect it very quickly and very accurately in the image. It can help the user move towards the QR code if they want to, but we can also then surface curated, high-quality product information provided by the brand. And it all works with the assistive technologies on their phone.
And so this means, for example, some audio that tells them when they are getting closer to the object, or maybe, of course, some speech to text, no, text to speech, saying what the product is, right? So the built-in functions that are already on the device, correct?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And is this something that you have already deployed in some cases on the real world? And if so, how?
Absolutely. Well, so Zapvision is already on over 2 billion products around the world now. Our launch partner for Zapvision was Unilever. And so they've deployed what we call accessible QR codes on products across a range of different categories, from like detergents to home care to just a huge set and growing.
Unilever, I can imagine.
Yeah, exactly. We have also product trials in market with Nestle and with Bayer, and a number of the other CPGs, consumer packaged goods companies. And so very much this technology works if it's an ecosystem play, if that makes sense. So we need the brands and the manufacturers for these products to be on board and to see the value. We need our technology to be present and accessible. We embed our technology into apps that are used by the blind and partially sighted communities, in addition to providing an app of our own. So we need the blind and partially sighted communities to know of this technology and to make use of it. And then we have other partners. For example, in the UK, we have an organization called the RNIB, the Royal National Institute for Blind People, and they've been invaluable in helping us develop this technology and assert its value and make sure it's doing the right thing. And so the combination of these things means that Zapvision is growing quickly, and it's a pleasure to work on.
Absolutely, I can imagine. But then, so we have discussed about a very broad range, right? So we went from this accessible AR headset to the creative tooling to this specific apps for the visually impaired. I imagine also that a portion of this is somehow, let's say, services or support that you provide. So you don't just sell the product, but maybe build the solution. Is this assumption correct?
Yes, there's each of the products are kind of supported and serviced in different ways by Zapper, but for the most part, so for example, our creative tooling is a software as a service platform, so you can just kind of log on, sign up, get a trial account, and then work away, and there's some plans and things for that. The headset is just sold in Amazon and in GameStop and a few places like that. And then Zapvision is very much a assisted product from Zapper's perspective. So we work very closely with the brands and manufacturers to bring accessible QR codes to their products and get them into market and solve the problems that they have with trying to distribute that type of technology, but then also to provide the value to the blind and partially sighted community.
So I'm not sure that I've seen many other companies being so diversified, especially in the XR space. So I'm curious, maybe like, how does that flows into and maybe has evolved over time, right? So Feeling says that right now Zapvision, it's a big commitment, because of course when you have such a big project deployed on, as you mentioned, millions of products, then of course there is a risk and a focus that goes with it, right? In focusing on that. But maybe can you share with other people that are maybe also building these studios and focusing on augmented reality, just an impression of how much of your revenue or focus is on the designing side, like, for example, Zapworks design or Mattercraft? What was the bet on the headset? Can you please break us down that a little bit?
Sure. I'm not sure I can't share specific numbers, but what I can do is give you the vibe, if you like.
Correct.
And from Zapper's perspective, the bits that are, if you like, most scalable are our software as a service platform. That's where we have an assisted and an unassisted sales cycle, if you like, or sales funnel. So some people we help get onto the platform, for example, enterprise customers and these sorts of things. But there's also a huge, and I think probably the fastest growing part of that bit of the business, which is the unassisted funnel. Those people that come to our platform naturally, sign up, get started, get going, and have a great time. For something like Zapvision, it's, I think, on the whole, the biggest growing part of Zapper, because the degree of assistance we provide and the degree of value we provide directly in that process is higher than it would be on the other platforms or the products that we have. So when we are, let's say, onboarding a customer into our Zapvision business to help them put QR codes on their product pack, that's a very assisted process. We really help them understand how that's going to work, how they do this at scale. A company like Unilever has, I think it's maybe even tens of thousands of individual product lines, if you like. What's known in the industry as a SKU. They have at least tens of thousands of different ones of those, and each of those have their own identity, their own barcode. And we want to put a QR code on a product, different QR code for a product that's got a different barcode, so that we can serve the right content to that user. And so there's challenges there, and that's where quite a lot of our time at Zapper is spent helping that process work correctly.
So when we think about, let's say, deploying augmented reality, right, in businesses, let's say in this case, what are you think some kind of like indicators or metrics that can help understand if something is successful? I'm not sure Zapvision fits in this because, of course, or maybe it does, right? I'm not sure. So when it's about deploying augmented reality, how have you kind of like measured success for the clients or as well as for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Zapvision is a really interesting one to start with because it is different from the rest of our platform in terms of what success looks like for our customers. So if you imagine if you're a company that's making a building, designing a building, you're going to put a ramp outside that building to help those who can't use the steps get into the building. And you're not going to put like a little counter on that ramp and count how many times people use the ramp versus the steps to decide whether it's been worth your time or not putting the ramp in place, right? That doesn't make sense. You want to help those that don't need to use this or can't use the steps, regardless of how many of those people it's going to be, because it's going to be at least one, and it's the correct thing to do. The right thing to do is to enable that person access to the building in an equitable way. So there's another element as well, which is you don't want. So let's say a brand is deploying a technology like these QR codes onto pack. We don't necessarily want to enable the brand to collect data about a specific community if that community has to give that data over in order to have what is otherwise an equitable experience. So I've said that quite complicated, but basically what I mean is if we can see a product pack and a manufacturer doesn't get information about every single time that I look at a product pack, right? That's fair. They can't tell. But if we are enabling the blind and partially sighted community to get the same information about that product pack, is it right that they have to give up some personal data in order to do that? Our view at Zapper is no, or certainly not without consent. So perhaps the blind and partially sighted community users can opt into things like reward schemes, loyalty schemes, etc. But the fundamental act of viewing the product information on pack does not give any personal information to the manufacturers. And as a result, measuring and understanding the success of these types of things is a bit more complicated. Ways in which we have measured success with Zapvision, which has worked really well for us, is the technology has done really well when it comes to awards in the packaging industry, but also in the XR industry. We won the Community Algae Award last year or the year before. And so there's a ton of recognition that you can get, I suppose, from this type of technology because we're innovating and we're doing it in a way with accessibility first. The other platforms are more traditional.
No, I mean, of course, especially with when it's about innovating and including and using this technology in meaningful way, like the one we just mentioned with Zapvision, is absolutely critical. Over the years, I've come to be a bit skeptical of the value of awards, like joining a lot of these events, and it's like, it's nice. It's nice to be recognized, but I always wonder if it's a feeling good moment other than having a real acknowledgement that really helps with specific clients or conversation, because it's kind of like, I wouldn't say easy, I'm not saying easy, but these awards, the value, it's a bit tricky, right, to quantify or position in all that. I do actually want to move, while we move towards the end, to another point that is, so far we have discussed about AR more on a, let's say, small scale. What I mean with small scale is like in your room, in your desk, in a classroom, in your pantry, right? But what about when we go broader, when we look at the whole apartment, at the building, at the neighborhood, at the city? There is a lot of talks about these AR glasses that are gonna be here at some point. We don't know if it's Apple, if it's gonna be Meta, if it's gonna be Google. Someone will certainly, or more, right? Or other players. At this point, we have learned to be surprised in tech. That's a great thing. But the point is, what's your vision of AR and maybe Zappar outside the room, outside the apartment?
Absolutely. Well, I think the first and most important thing, and this I think is one of the other, I suppose, foundational elements of Zapper, is it's very easy to get carried away with this kind of technology, with immersive technologies and AR and VR, without having the ultimate end user value in mind. And so it's really important for us that what we're trying to achieve is delivering value to people. And it's not just technology for technology's sake. And so when it comes to these bigger types of experiences that take place in your city, for example, or even in a broader building, I think it's going to be a while before people are comfortable to be in these environments with an Apple Vision Pro on their head all day, right? So we've got to think of where we can get the value in these spaces from this technology that works. If you build an amazing experience that takes place in your city that requires people to wear Apple Vision Pro, and nobody is willing to wear the Apple Vision Pro whilst they're walking about a city, then you're not going to be delivering any value, no matter how good that experience is. So what that means is with this lens of understanding the value, we at Zapper then think about what are the applications and use cases in these bigger spaces that are going to really benefit from this technology. So there's a couple I think that are really interesting. One is the partnership we have with Immersal. Immersal are a company that make VPS, so visual positioning systems. And that's a technology where a device like your mobile phone can send a camera image to the server, or indeed can process it on the device and return the location of that camera within a map that was otherwise stored in their servers. So a typical example would be, to take an example here in London, going to Big Ben and the user being able to point their phone up at Big Ben and there's a big, I don't know, King Kong climbing over the tower or something.
What else? But yes.
Yeah. So these types of things, I suppose, typically brand engagements that are taking place in iconic and important spaces. And I think that's a really interesting use case. It delivers value on both sides. You know, the end user gets a great experience. The brand or the promoter, if you like, gets the value of the eyeballs in that space. And at the end of that experience, the user's going to put their phone away, they're going to get on the underground and they're going to go to their lunch or what have you. But that's fine because the value's being had in that space. And we're also not demanding too much from the user. We're not telling them they've got to take their Vision Pro to Westminster and look up at the thing. Another use case, which I think is super interesting, I know we've spoken quite a bit about Zap Vision, but we're working with a company to take the Zap Vision technology, which is fundamentally these QR codes with the ... dash pattern around that, and strategically instrument a building with with codes. So maybe in the lobby we put a code, and in a few other places in the building we put codes to enable what is then a point-to-point navigation in that environment, particularly for the blind and partially sighted community. So somebody, for example, who has little or no vision can arrive at a building, maybe from a cab, but then from the lobby, they can open their phone up. The phone can work out very quickly where they are in that building. They can put in their destination or maybe select it from their calendar invitation. And then the application will give them turn-by-turn navigation in the building to their destination in a way that's compatible with their accessibility settings. And again, this is pretty game-changing for the community. This, enables something where otherwise they would have had to prearrange sighted assistants for navigation in that space. And then, even getting to the bathrooms or to the cafeteria or these sorts of things is challenging.
And do you think this would work, let's say, natively also on glasses? Because let's imagine on the Ray-Ban, right? You still have a camera. You still, as long as you have that, and then you have audio in this case, that you don't need to have digital content superimposed on something in order to tell where to go, right? So would this work, or there would be some extra adjustment needed?
In general, it would work. It depends a bit, and we have ongoing conversations with a number of wearable technologies with regards to this. The Ray-Ban is interesting. The camera on the Ray-Ban actually doesn't perform well enough, I don't think, for it. So it's pretty low resolution, and that's fine for sort of simpler AI tasks, for example, and for snapshots and videos and things like that. But for this type of technology, a good camera makes a huge difference. And so that's why the headsets, we're working specifically with some to kind of understand what's going to work best. There's some really interesting, even simpler solutions as well, which is you get this, you can buy these necklace phone holders that goes around your neck. It's kind of for influencers filming point of view, like product and experience type things, but effectively it's just a little $20 device you put around your neck, and it's got a little magnetic hold for your phone on the front of it, and that allows you to it's perfect for this use case. So somebody that's blind or partially sighted would pop their phone into that holder. The phone camera is pointing out in front of them, which is what we need, so we know the direction that they're going, and then it provides an audio turn-by-turn navigation thing. The screen readers on devices that are typically used by people that have very little vision are gesture-based. So you just, with your thumb flicking on the screen left or right, for example, can navigate through a user interface on the phone. And even with this holder on, you can use those interfaces with your hand. One of the particular challenges for the community for any type of assistive technology is hands. So if they've got a cane or maybe a dog in one hand and they're going to be opening doors with another hand, or maybe they're going to be holding a product with another hand, where are they going to hold the phone? So having a wearable or either a headset or something they can put their phone into makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think probably the thing is, we don't need to wait for AR glasses in order to provide solution for people that have maybe these type of limitations, right? And of course, so this is, I think, a good lesson learned. We're always looking for the next technology, but we might have a solution that is a clever string around your neck, and that might be just enough when you walk around. And when you're done, you can just use your phone with the standard settings that you have set up.
Exactly. You don't need to charge it up. It is not expensive. It is it's dead inside, if you like. There's no electronics to worry about. You're going to be able to get it through your taxi. You're going to be able to put it on easily. There's a ton of reasons why sometimes a simple thing is great. And it ultimately works because the phone that you've got actually has a ton of fantastic technology in it. We don't have to replicate that just because we want to fit it to your face.
Absolutely, absolutely. Connell, thank you very much. I think I found it very interesting. And so maybe shortly, what's next? Are you guys focusing now specifically on some of these products? Can we expect something different or new, or you have full focus on some of this?
Yeah, well, obviously the Zap Vision technology I've been discussing is a huge focus for us at the moment at Zapper. But my team in particular, we're very focused on Mattercraft, our creative tooling, and I've got a ton of exciting releases in the pipeline for that over the coming months. So yeah, lots of diversity in what we do at Zapper, but all loved and all interesting and exciting, in my humble opinion.
Absolutely, I have no doubt, and especially after learning about this today. Connell, thank you very much. It was a real pleasure to have a chat.
You're very welcome. The pleasure was mine.
Thank you very much for listening in. If you like the show, remember to leave a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or a thumbs up on YouTube. It really helps me keep doing this and shine the spotlights on the greatest founders and makers, pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. Also, make sure to check out the show page xraispotlight.com, where you can find more conversation like this one. Till next time.